Auto mechanics witness the absolute darkest corners of human logic. You might think changing oil and fixing brakes is a standard job, but dealing with drivers who fundamentally misunderstand how car works is the real challenge. From customers filling their engines with pure olive oil to drivers terrified by rain-sensing wipers, we are exposing 55 of the absolute weirdest, dumbest, and most absurd auto repair complaints ever recorded. These demands will genuinely leave you speechless. 1. Seatbelts are the most fundamental safety tool in existence, which makes this specific grievance highly disturbing. A middle-aged accountant complained that her seatbelt lock was aggressively trying to choke her during sharp turns. The horrified mechanic discovered she was actively pulling the shoulder strap completely behind her back and looping it tightly around her bare neck. She confidently claimed it was the only way to maintain perfect spinal posture while driving. 2. Rather than asking for a basic diagnostic check, one woman furiously demanded that the shop refund her for a roll of black electrical tape. She proudly explained to the manager that the annoying yellow check engine light was ruining the evening aesthetic of her dashboard, so she just covered it up. When the motor inevitably blew out 2 weeks later, she fully blamed the mechanics for not warning her that the sticky tape would not actually fix a catastrophic mechanical failure. 3. Technicians are totally used to worn-out parts, but one guy showed up furious that his truck was making a deafening metal grinding noise at every single stop sign. He had consciously ignored the warning squeaks for a solid 6 months. When the mechanic showed him the completely vaporized brake pads, the driver asked if they could just spray some heavy lubricant on the bare metal to make it quieter. Yes, he genuinely wanted his brakes to be greased up so they would slide silently. 4. A college student brought her compact car in with a highly specific grievance about the air conditioning system physically stealing her premium gasoline. She was absolutely convinced that turning the cold air on was siphoning raw fuel directly from her gas tank and blowing it into the cabin vents. It actually took 3 different certified technicians drawing diagrams on a shop whiteboard to finally convince her that the engine simply works a little bit harder to run the compressor. 5. Trying to save a few bucks on routine maintenance led one supposed genius to fill his engine block with pure, extra virgin olive oil. He stormed into the service center complaining that his vehicle suddenly smelled exactly like a cheap Italian restaurant and was smoking aggressively from the hood. The guy honestly thought synthetic motor oil was a corporate marketing scam and figured anything slippery would do the trick. Would you ever trust a friend to drive your car if they thought like this? 6. Some gripes sound like they belong in a bizarre psychological thriller rather than a neighborhood garage. A middle-aged man formally requested that his windshield wipers be recalibrated because the steady rhythmic motion was actively hypnotizing him on the highway. He demanded they be reprogrammed to move completely out of sync, perhaps one fast and one slow, to keep his brain alert. The shop manager politely declined to custom build a chaotic, seizure-inducing wiper system just for him. 7. Modern vehicles feature plenty of bizarre storage slots, but one incredibly angry customer was livid that the tiny toaster built into his dashboard was broken. The mechanic was thoroughly confused until the man pointed directly at the stereo compact disc player. He had been forcefully shoving slices of white bread into the disk drive, fully expecting the car to warm them up for his morning commute. When the radio jammed, he threatened to sue the dealership for false breakfast advertising. 8. Blaming a foul odor on the service department is incredibly common, but one aggressive woman took it to a ridiculous extreme. She stormed the counter complaining that the mechanics had completely ruined her luxury interior by making it smell exactly like a dirty, wet dog. The bewildered technician simply pointed through the giant glass waiting room window directly at her massive golden retriever, who was currently drooling all over the passenger seat. She still furiously demanded a free detail. 9. Mysterious rattling noises are the absolute bread and butter of any local auto shop. A stressed family man dropped off his massive minivan, complaining of a severe suspension clunk that only occurred during very sharp turns. Mechanics hoisted the heavy vehicle onto the hydraulic lift, checked the shocks, inspected the axles, and found zero mechanical flaws. They finally popped the rear trunk hatch and discovered 3 loose bowling balls violently smashing against the interior plastic panels. 10. Driving around with the emergency brake engaged is a common rookie mistake, but taking the car to a professional to complain about the lack of speed is next level. One guy dropped off his sports car, stating it felt incredibly sluggish and smelled like a literal backyard bonfire. He had been commuting for 3 days with the handbrake pulled all the way up to the ceiling. Do you think people who ignore a glowing red dashboard warning light should have their driving license instantly revoked? 11. A highly educated accountant marched into the service center, demanding to know why her turning signals were making a weird sloshing sound. She had read an internet joke about blinker fluid and took it entirely seriously. Instead of going to an auto parts store, she proactively drilled tiny holes into the top of her rear taillights and filled the plastic casings completely to the brim with tap water. When the electrical system immediately short-circuited, she blamed the manufacturer for not making the fluid reservoir more accessible. 12. We all want autonomous driving, but one terrifyingly confident guy literally engaged his basic highway cruise control at 60 miles per hour and then climbed into the passenger seat to eat a burrito. After miraculously surviving the inevitable ditch crash, he had the audacity to sue the dealership. He claimed the salesman explicitly told him the car would cruise on its own, completely misunderstanding the fundamental difference between maintaining a steady speed and an actual robotic chauffeur. Would you ever get on the highway again knowing people like this are driving next to you? 13. Mechanics often have to act as visual translators for confusing dashboard symbols. An older gentleman came in extremely agitated, claiming his imported luxury sedan was malfunctioning because a red pirate ship kept glowing right behind his steering wheel. The master technician was thoroughly baffled until he turned the key and saw the standard engine coolant temperature warning light illuminated. The customer genuinely thought the little thermometer dipping into the wavy liquid was a tiny sailboat warning him about nearby bodies of water. 14. Restoring nighttime visibility is crucial, so a technician quickly swapped out a completely shattered front headlight assembly. Instead of saying thank you, the owner threw an absolute tantrum, claiming her car now looked horribly cross-eyed. Because the brand-new plastic housing was crystal clear, it heavily mismatched the foggy, yellowed headlight on the opposite side. Rather than buying a matching second light, she seriously ordered the mechanic to aggressively sand down the new one so it would look equally ancient and terrible. 15. Sometimes luxury features are totally wasted on the absolute worst owners. A furious woman driving a heavy-duty sport utility vehicle stormed the service desk because her premium winter weather package was wildly defective. She had pressed the button labeled Snow on her center console during a sweltering July afternoon and was genuinely outraged when a magical flurry of fresh snowflakes did not suddenly burst out of her dashboard vents to cool down the cabin. She thought it was a super-powered air conditioning mode. 16. Do-it-yourself engine cleaning rarely goes well, but one creative suburban dad decided to take matters into his own hands by pouring a full gallon of industrial household bleach directly into his gas tank. He told the stunned service advisor he just wanted to deep clean the internal fuel injectors to get better gas mileage on his commute. Instead, he managed to instantly destroy the entire fuel system and melt multiple expensive rubber seals. Are we seriously at a point where cars should require a basic common sense test before purchase? 17. Phantom noises are a mechanic's worst nightmare, especially when the description is wildly dramatic. A frantic driver swore her suspension was possessed by a demon because her car let out a high-pitched shriek every single time she drove over a speed bump. 4 technicians spent over an hour tearing the undercarriage apart looking for a terrible metal scrape. It turned out to be a bright pink squeaky rubber pig toy that her golden retriever had accidentally dropped down the rear floorboard heating vent. 18. A furious driver dragged her brand new sport utility vehicle into the service bay, absolutely convinced the car was completely unpotty trained. She aggressively pointed at a small puddle of clean water underneath the engine, claiming the vehicle was literally peeing on her pristine driveway. The lead mechanic had to gently explain that basic air conditioning systems naturally create condensation on hot summer days. She actually asked if they sold automotive diapers. 19. You would think basic thermodynamics is common knowledge, but apparently that is asking way too much. A customer furiously wrote a 2-page complaint letter because the front windshield defroster was actively melting his frozen groceries. He had developed a weird habit of resting his pints of premium chocolate ice cream directly on top of the dashboard vents while driving home in the middle of winter. He fully expected the hot air blowing on the icy glass to somehow magically skip over his frozen dessert. 20. Prioritizing personal comfort over structural safety reached a new high when a very large man asked a custom auto shop to use a reciprocating saw to cut a massive hole in his center console. His deeply specific problem was that the factory cup holders were far too narrow to hold his favorite family-sized bucket of fried chicken. When the shop refused to destroy his interior trim for poultry storage, he accused them of having terrible customer service. How far would you go to protect your favorite road trip snacks? 21. After a highly skilled technician finally tracked down and eliminated a maddening dashboard vibration, the owner stormed back into the lobby demanding a full refund. She claimed the mechanic had completely ruined the vehicle's unique soul by removing its signature purr. She seriously argued that the terrifying metallic rattle was actually the car communicating with her, and the repair shop had effectively silenced her best mechanical friend. Have you ever grown so unexpectedly attached to a broken item that fixing it actually felt like a betrayal? 22. Cooling systems are notoriously sensitive, yet one guy confidently rolled in with a radiator that was violently boiling over and smelling faintly of peach. He calmly explained that his engine was running hot during a long road trip, so he generously poured 2 massive jugs of sweet iced tea directly into the coolant reservoir. He figured that since the cold beverage quickly cools humans down on a hot summer afternoon, it would work exactly the same magic on a combustible metal engine. 23. Routine. Tire rotations are a standard industry practice, but one absurdly aggressive driver accused the garage of intentionally sabotaging his daily commute. He viciously complained that by moving the rear tires to the front, the mechanics had confused the rubber's natural memory. According to his wild theory, the wheels were used to spinning in a specific spot, and forcing them into a new position was making his vehicle feel incredibly dizzy and nauseous on the highway. 24. Technology often baffles older generations, but one sweet grandmother took dashboard navigation to a terrifyingly literal extreme. She pulled into the service bay, whispering frantically that a tiny woman was trapped somewhere behind her radio and kept aggressively demanding she make a U-turn. The poor mechanic had to gently demonstrate how the satellite navigation speaker actually worked, assuring her that absolutely no one was being held hostage inside her center console. 25. Changing dirty motor oil is literally the most basic service a shop provides. Yet, a furious businessman returned 20 minutes after his appointment, screaming that the technicians had installed overly slippery synthetic oil. He insisted his high-mileage sedan was now gliding way too smoothly on the road and demanded they drain the fresh fluids to put the thick, sludgy black oil back in to give the engine more traction. 26. A teenager brought in his customized hatchback, complaining that his steering wheel was way too difficult to turn during rapid street racing maneuvers. Before seeking professional help, he had forcefully sprayed 3 entire cans of industrial WD-40 directly behind the steering column. Not only did the chemical completely fry the complex internal electronics, but the slick, oily residue also made the steering wheel dangerously impossible to grip with bare hands. 27. Wheel alignments are strictly designed to keep your vehicle safely tracking in a straight line. However, one heavily distracted driver was absolutely livid after her service, claiming the mechanic had ruined her morning routine. She angrily confessed that her car naturally pulling sharply to the right used to help her perfectly navigate a long highway curve while she was busy texting. She actually wanted the dangerous steering misalignment put back so she could keep ignoring the road. 28. Do it yourself. Car maintenance is a recipe for absolute disaster when pretty colors get involved. A young woman completely locked up her engine block and fiercely blamed the manufacturer. When the head mechanic popped the hood, he found the internal block full of bright blue liquid. She confidently explained that since her car was painted blue, she assumed all the fluids going inside also needed to match. She proudly poured 2 gallons of soapy windshield wiper fluid directly into the oil cap. 29. Fixing a broken air conditioning system in the middle of a brutal heat wave usually makes a mechanic a local hero. That was until a disgruntled office worker called the service manager to complain that the freshly repaired vents were blowing way too efficiently. He was highly upset that the freezing cold air was drastically lowering the temperature of his morning caramel macchiato before he could finish drinking it. He actually asked the shop to intentionally break the compressor just a little bit. 30. Pranks are always funny until they cause thousands of dollars in mechanical engine damage. A college kid towed his car into the shop because the engine kept aggressively choking and dying immediately after starting. After an hour of running expensive diagnostic tests, the technician crawled underneath and pulled a massive, fully baked russet potato out of the tailpipe. The driver was totally shocked, having completely forgotten about a drunken joke he played on his own car 3 days prior. Are your friends this creatively destructive, or do they actually have some basic common sense? 31. Heated steering wheels are an amazing winter luxury, right up until the driver completely abandons basic logic. An angry commuter returned to the dealership furious that his brand new heating feature was completely defective. He loudly screamed that he could not feel a single drop of warmth radiating from the leather rim. The service advisor just stared in pure disbelief because the man was heavily gripping the wheel while wearing incredibly thick, fully insulated waterproof snowboarding gloves. 32. Dashboard warning symbols are designed to be simple, but one deeply literal driver threatened to sue his local garage over false advertising. He furiously pointed at the yellow check engine light and screamed that the notification was fundamentally broken. The mechanic was confused until the guy explained that he popped the hood, stared directly at the large metal block, and visually confirmed the engine was still there. He fully expected the tiny plastic icon to print out a highly detailed diagnostic report explaining the exact malfunctioning bolt. 33. Upgrading to premium ceramic brake pads is usually a massive win for vehicle safety, yet a corporate executive drove right back to file a formal grievance. He angrily complained that the mechanics had completely ruined his morning commute by making the stopping power way too aggressive. Every single time he approached a red light, the highly responsive new brakes caused his hot latte to spill directly onto his designer trousers. He genuinely demanded the technicians grease the shiny new rotors just to make his stops feel more sluggish. 34. Car batteries eventually die and need replacement, but the visual aesthetics of the engine bay are rarely a serious concern. A spiritual wellness coach threw an absolute fit in the waiting room because the technicians installed a bright blue battery instead of a black one. She passionately argued that the harsh neon color was actively disrupting the delicate feng shui of her engine compartment and blocking positive highway energy. She refused to leave until they wrapped the plastic casing in black electrical tape to restore her driving balance. 35. Eliminating a high-pitched engine squeal is exactly why you pay a professional, but achieving pure mechanical silence actually backfired for one shop. A stressed mother returned 3 days after a simple serpentine belt replacement, bitterly complaining that fixing the noise destroyed her daily schedule. She confessed that she always used the terrible screeching sound as an audible reminder to finally turn her ignition off. Without the horrifying metal shriek, she accidentally left the vehicle running in her closed garage overnight twice in a row. 36. Fuel efficiency is a common concern, though one wildly misguided teenager blamed the repair shop for his suddenly terrible gas mileage. He aggressively claimed the recent tune-up had totally broken his fuel lines. After a quick test drive, the technician realized the kid was intentionally merging onto a fast interstate while permanently stuck in third gear. The driver fiercely defended his terrible shifting strategy, insisting that keeping the engine screaming at maximum redline made his cheap economy hatchback sound like a modified Italian supercar. 37. Nighttime visibility is crucial, so technicians always ensure headlight beams are perfectly leveled during a state inspection. Unfortunately, one deeply petty homeowner was absolutely furious when she realized her lights had been properly adjusted downward. She stormed back to the counter, loudly complaining that the mechanics had completely ruined her neighborhood rivalry. Her headlights had previously been aimed so incredibly high that they violently illuminated the bedroom of her sworn enemy across the street, and she wanted that blinding feature restored immediately. 38. Blaming a terrible odor on a faulty air conditioning repair is a classic customer defense mechanism. A sharply dressed real estate agent screamed that the brand new cabin air filter they installed was actively pumping the smell of rotting garbage into his luxury interior. The mechanics bravely dismantled the entire dashboard, searching for a dead rodent, only to discover a melted plastic bag jammed deep underneath the passenger seat. The angry driver had completely forgotten about 2 pounds of raw shrimp he purchased during a massive heat wave. 39. Falsely accusing service workers of theft is an incredibly serious escalation. A notoriously grumpy grandfather threatened to call the police, boldly declaring the mechanics had stolen $20 in loose quarters from his center console. To prove his absolute innocence, the technician grabbed a flashlight and peered directly down into the wide-open dashboard defroster vents. He quickly spotted the shiny pile of missing silver coins resting on top of the heating core, where the old man had been blindly tossing his toll booth change for 6 months. 40. Luxury features are amazing until people misunderstand basic thermodynamics. A furious businessman brought his crossover back to the dealership, demanding an electrical refund. He was terribly upset that activating the heated leather seat function during a sweltering August afternoon made him sweat profusely. He honestly believed that if it was incredibly hot outside, the car computer would automatically reverse the current to turn the heating coils into a rapid freezing system. 41. Upgrading to premium all-season tires is a standard safety recommendation, but one teenager was absolutely furious with the shop's choice of rubber. He aggressively complained that the brand new tires had way too much traction on wet roads. He actually demanded the mechanics shave down the fresh tread because the extra grip was completely ruining his ability to effortlessly drift his mother's front-wheel drive minivan around empty supermarket parking lots. Have you ever heard a worse excuse for reckless driving? 42. Fixing a complex emissions issue should result in a happy customer. Yet one college student was devastated when her dashboard went dark. She drove back to the garage demanding the technicians intentionally trigger a harmless sensor to turn her check engine light back on. Her completely serious argument was that the bright amber glow was the only source of ambient lighting in her cabin, and without it, she could no longer see the cup holders during her late-night food runs. 43. Achieving a smooth highway ride is the ultimate goal, but one overly creative driver decided standard compressed air was just too bouncy. He limped his wildly vibrating sedan into the service bay and demanded a full suspension rebuild. The heavily confused mechanics popped the tire valves and were immediately sprayed with high-pressure tap water. The guy had hooked up a garden hose to his wheels, firmly believing that liquid water would give his lightweight compact car the luxurious, heavy feel of a military tank. 44. Tire wear is a universal issue, but one driver brought a whole new level of geographical confusion to the local garage. He aggressively pointed at the ground and complained that his front tires were only going flat on the very bottom, while the top halves remained perfectly inflated. He seriously asked the mechanic to just physically rotate the rubber circles so the flat part faced the sky, expecting that to completely solve his air pressure problem. The absolute silence that followed in the shop was deafening. 45. Fueling up a vehicle is a task most people master in their first week of driving, but color coordination proved to be one woman's ultimate downfall. She towed her completely destroyed crossover to the dealership, wildly blaming the manufacturer for a faulty engine block. The mechanics quickly drained the tank and discovered it was full of diesel fuel instead of standard unleaded gasoline. Her totally unbothered defense was that the bright green diesel pump handle perfectly matched her exterior paint job, so it just felt right. Would you even know how to respond to logic that deeply flawed? 46. Tracking down and eliminating annoying interior squeaks takes incredible patience. A dedicated mechanic spent 2 hours perfectly securing a loose door panel, only to face the wrath of an aspiring local DJ. The young driver was absolutely livid that the interior was now totally silent. He loudly argued that the aggressive plastic rattling was the only way he knew his aftermarket subwoofers were actually hitting the correct bass frequencies. He practically begged the shop to rip the door apart again and loosen all the factory screws. 47. Modern technology is supposed to make driving a breeze, yet automatic rain-sensing windshield wipers sent one terrified man into full panic mode. He aggressively swerved into the repair lot, refusing to get back inside his luxury sedan. He fiercely complained to the service advisor that a highly aggressive ghost was haunting his windshield, completely turning the wipers on and off at random intervals. It took 3 mechanics to finally convince a grown adult that a tiny optical sensor was just reacting to a light drizzle. 48. Routine maintenance is designed to keep engines running smoothly, which was apparently a massive problem for one eccentric artist. After receiving a basic oil change and a new fuel filter, he called the shop owner in a state of deep depression. He complained that the mechanics had completely stolen his classic truck's unique personality. He actually missed the thrilling suspense of having to violently pump the gas pedal 5 times and pray to the heavens just to get the engine started every single morning. 49. Mechanics hear weird noise complaints constantly, but one aspiring local musician had a deeply specific audio grievance. He demanded a full electrical refund because his turning signal was actively ruining his driving playlist. He bitterly complained that the rhythmic clicking of the blinker was slightly offbeat from his favorite hip-hop tracks, causing him intense artistic distress. He genuinely asked the technicians to somehow rewire the flasher relay to perfectly match a fast musical tempo. 50. Honking the horn is a universal warning signal, but a deeply non-confrontational yoga instructor found the factory sound far too aggressive for her spiritual aura. She politely asked the baffled service department to replace her loud, blaring horn with a gentle acoustic chime that sounded like a meditation bell. When the technicians explained that a soft whisper of a sound would not stop a semi-truck from backing into her at a red light, she accused them of intentionally spreading toxic, negative energy on the streets. Are people really prioritizing good vibes over basic road survival? 51. A teenager was incredibly hostile after a mechanic fixed a massive hole in his exhaust pipe. Instead of thanking the shop for saving him from carbon monoxide poisoning, he demanded they put the giant crack back. He aggressively complained that the technician had completely stolen his car's speed because the engine no longer sounded like a roaring jet engine at 20 miles per hour. He literally thought making less noise meant the mechanic had illegally downgraded his horsepower. 52. Getting a complimentary car wash with your service usually results in a generous tip. However, one heavily bearded hipster completely lost his mind when a mechanic wiped down his disgustingly dirty windows. He formally complained to the manager that the shop had intentionally destroyed his custom organic privacy tint. He had spent 2 entire years carefully cultivating a thick layer of natural highway grime, just so people at stoplights could not look directly into his eyes. 53. Properly inflating tires to the correct pressure is an absolute safety must. Yet, an angry executive returned to the dealership, threatening to sue the service department for property damage. He claimed the mechanics overfilled his tires so aggressively that his luxury sedan grew 2 inches taller and scraped the top of his personal home garage. He actually ordered the lead technician to permanently deflate all 4 wheels back to dangerously flat levels just so he could park indoors. 54. Blaming the repair crew for missing items is an endless headache. A frantic woman called the police on a local garage, screaming that a mechanic had stolen her favorite country music compact disc during an oil change. The officers arrived, only for the shop owner to calmly walk over to her car, turn the key, and press the eject button on the stereo. The disc popped right out. She was entirely unaware that the radio actually stores the physical music internally while playing. 55. You would assume turning off a check engine light is the ultimate goal of any repair visit. Instead, an eccentric astrology enthusiast started weeping uncontrollably at the checkout counter. She furiously complained that the mechanic had selfishly extinguished her lucky orange star. She genuinely believed the dashboard warning light was a magical cosmic guide that kept her safe on road trips, and she demanded the shop physically break a sensor to make it glow brightly once again. Mechanics truly deserve a golden medal for dealing with this level of daily absurdity. Now I have a serious question for you. What is the absolute dumbest auto repair complaint or driving excuse you have ever personally heard from a friend or family member? Expose their horrible car logic down in the comments below. If these insane garage stories made you laugh or temporarily lose faith in humanity, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more unbelievable facts.